I just want you to take a couple deep breaths.
Okay.
Because remember, part of being mindful is just slowing down. And now I want you to think about maybe a favorite spot outside you have. Maybe it's your favorite nature location you've ever been to. Maybe it's one that you visit all the time.
Hello, Sobat Kokamuhi. Welcome back to our podcast series where we talk about how to engage the community for a better earth. I'm Nikita, your host who will guide you in this conversation. Well, I think today's episode is one of the most unique episodes for me because today we will talk about mindfulness. So, as we know in this era, a lot of young generations face depression or anxiety or they feel stressed because of digital transformation and a lot of rapid change that we face in today. And today we'll also talk about how to navigate the stress with someone that really amazing from NASA. So we will talk about environmental observation and then how the observation make us being relaxed and being calm. And yeah, before any further ado, let's welcome Miss Jessica Taylor. Hello, Miss Jessica Taylor.
Why, hello. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this.
And thank you so much for coming here. So I want to let you know, guys, that Miss Jessica Taylor is an amazing educator and role model and woman and STEM education, and she leads a lot of projects. She is a project leader for my NASA data and then principal investigator for Globe Clouds funded by NASA. So, how are you, Miss Jessica Taylor?
I'm great. I am so inspired by you and your energy, and I'm excited to get to talk to you.
Uh-huh. And yeah, I also very, very happy to meet you because yeah, I also feel your positive energy. So we both have positive energy today. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I like
And
to, I'm glad we can send that out to everyone as well who watches.
yes, of course. And yeah, you are now in Virginia, right?
Yes,
And
I
your
live
office.
in the state of Virginia in the United States, and specifically in the Virginia Beach area.
And your office name is NASA Research Center, isn't it? Or
Yes, so I work at NASA Langley Research Center, and that's
Mhm.
here nearby in Hampton, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. And you now live in Virginia, but the place where you grew up is Spring Hill in Florida, right?
Yes, so
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Florida, this town called Spring Hill, which was not a big city. It was pretty suburban.
And can you tell us a little bit of your childhood in Spring Hill? What was the fun and interesting about Spring Hill?
What is interesting, I would say, about Florida in particular is, we don't have seasons. So that was something that I was not used to. Was cold weather. It's
Mhm,
basically always warm and humid in Florida.
mhm,
And I grew up doing a lot of dance. So after school, I did dance, and I love still to this day to do dance. I was a dancer. And so I grew up in Spring Hill, Florida, but I also spent my summers in Mexico City because I have family in Mexico. And
mhm,
we always wanted to go back and see my mom's side of the family. So I would spend, my parents both worked for the school system. So I was lucky enough to have that summer break, and we would
Mhm.
spend time in Mexico City, which was totally different than Spring Hill. It was, you know,
Mhm.
one of the largest cities in the world, and very urban location, really tall buildings. Whereas in
Mhm.
Spring Hill, I was used to single family homes and everybody had larger plots of land.
Mhm.
That's what I was used to. There being lots of space between people and houses. And Mexico
Mhm.
City is the opposite.
Yeah. So you experience some variety of place where we live in urban areas, and then you also live in the area where you have a lot of space with single home.
Yes,
That's
yes,
such a great experience for you. And
it was.
yeah, just we talked before the podcast. So you now work in Globe and you are an educator in Globe, but before you become an educator, you are a student of Globe, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing for me. So can you share with us the process from you become a Globe student and then you become an educator and now you are one of the great leader in Globe?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so I mentioning that I grew up in Florida, I
Mhm,
went to study meteorology at
mhm,
Florida State University. So
mhm,
Florida, in fact, the area that I grew up in was known as the lightning capital of the world. And I
mhm,
loved watching thunderstorms, and that's how I got
mhm,
curious and interested in meteorology. So I
mhm,
went to Florida State because that's where they had meteorology.
mhm,
And my major professor was Dr. Paul Ruscher, and he was part of the GLOBE program. And
mhm,
so very early on, I started making observations with the GLOBE program, which is a worldwide
mhm,
citizen science, volunteer science program where people collect data about their environment. So as a meteorologist, I was collecting atmosphere data. So
mhm,
I would go up. We had a pretty tall building, and I would go up to the roof of the building to make my observations. Um, and I mentioned Florida; it was hot, right? But it was a tar roof too, so
mhm,
it was black tar. It was very hot up there, but I went every day to make my cloud observations,
mhm,
precipitation. I did aerosol measurements, barometric pressure. I mean, all of the core atmospheric measurements. And I collected data just like all of the other participants and students in the GLOBE program. And I always credit the GLOBE program in doing that with helping me also see myself as a scientist because
mhm,
I became really good collecting data and also understanding. There's a class in meteorology called Instruments and Observations, right? Understanding
mhm,
your instrument and the resulting observation. And I knew all of that because I was doing that as part of GLOBE,
mhm,
right? I was collecting
mhm,
that data, looking at
mhm,
that data. And so that really helped me see myself as a
mhm,
scientist. But then what
mhm,
it also helped me do was I would go with my major professor to do these GLOBE workshops. And we worked with the College of Education to
mhm,
have these workshops where there was a strong focus on science and a strong focus on education. And my then major professor from that department, Dr. Alejandro Gallard, he would lead all of these questions about education. And I would ask questions all the time about how people learn. Why do we set up a workshop for participants the way that we do? And I was really curious about kind of the science of learning, right? Like how people do that. And my meteorology professor said, well, maybe you want to take some classes in education. And so
mhm,
I took a philosophy of education class and I was hooked. And so then I loved this combination of doing both sides. And that's how I really fell into science education.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, and it
Mm-hmm.
really motivates me today to think that I do get to use both of those skills, right? I am
Mm-hmm.
still now at NASA. I get to think about the science, but I also
Mm-hmm.
get to think about on the education side how people learn. And I
Mm-hmm.
love combining those two things together. And I'm so happy that I was able to find a position that got to engage both of those components.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear. We are not just thinking about learning science, but we also think how people can learn science. That's the great thing. And you also mentioned some your professor, your someone that helped you. So that's the evidence that even though we don't know what to do, someone will come to help you. Just ask for their maybe advice or their help, and they will support you.
Absolutely. I think it can be hard. Sometimes we think we're doing things alone,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have to be doing things alone, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
peers, we have friends that can help us
Mm-hmm.
through things, and we also can have mentors, like my major
Mm-hmm.
professors who helped guide me to think about, well, what other skills might I want to gain, and where might that take me? I
Mm-hmm.
also think it's important that we don't necessarily think of ourselves as
Mm-hmm.
one thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I my characteristics, my skills, my passions are many things, right? I am not
Mm-hmm.
just a scientist or just an educator or just a mom, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
many things, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what's unique about me. And I bring all of those
Mm-hmm.
experiences when I'm doing science and when I'm making observations, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to bring your authentic self
Mm-hmm.
to the practice of making observations and being, thoughtful about your environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that we can be when we are a student, we can also be the other person, like maybe artist or maybe
Yes.
maybe doubter. Yeah, we have a lot of positive level inside ourselves that makes us authentic for who we are. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about mindfulness. You um talk about you love thunderstorm a lot, and that makes me feel wow because a lot of people I know that a lot of people afraid of thunderstorm when they hear about thunderstorm. Hear thunderstorm sound, they maybe run away or go to place to hide. But you said that you love thunderstorm. I think that's one of the evidence of your mindfulness that you appreciate something and you see the thing in positive perspective. But in your perspective, how do you define mindfulness, and when were you aware of the importance of mindfulness?
Yeah, I do think that, thinking about, for your example, something that might be scary, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
thunderstorm. Um, we can also then turn that whatever might be the fear,
Mm-hmm.
turn it into curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
wonder. And that makes us more interested in learning about it as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to pushing it away.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I was curious about it. And I also just thought that it was beautiful, right? There are so many things in nature that are
Mm-hmm.
so unique. And that uniqueness is part of what makes it beautiful to see and to observe. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that shift. And for me, mindfulness is being thinking about your thoughts. I know that sounds kind of silly, but thinking about your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and challenging yourself
Mm-hmm.
to ask, have I thought about this in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
How else? might I think about this? How
Mhm.
else might I frame this?
Mhm.
Uh, what, how does this experience make me feel? How does it
Mhm.
make others feel? So to me, being mindful is asking a lot of questions.
Mhm.
And I think that I started coming to mindfulness more when in college I did a lot of Tai Chi, and I
Mhm.
love the practice of Tai Chi
Mhm.
and being slow.
Ah.
I'm someone who typically is not slow,
Mhm.
and my thoughts are typically not slow. So
Mhm.
I had to learn to slow down and just be, and it be okay that sometimes
Mhm.
things are slow. And that gave me a much greater appreciation for a lot of
Mhm.
different things, for myself, for my surroundings, and for others. And that's,
Mhm.
I think, the beginning of my journey in how to incorporate mindfulness into my life.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great story. And I really love that you said sometimes it's okay to say, yeah, sometimes it's okay to be slow, just let it be. So don't push something too
Yeah.
hard. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think mindfulness also is really important because that's part of how we appreciate the thing and how we see the thing differently, right? So when a scary thing comes, let's think about the positive thing of maybe the scary thing. Let's make
Yeah,
us
yeah, it's really
more.
flipping the situation around entirely.
Mm-hmm, yeah. That's true. And but back to the topic of being mindfulness through observation, how do you see or define the observation itself? And how did you start making observation as a relaxing or calm thing for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure everyone sees that connection right away between observations of your environment and that supporting your practice of being mindful. But to me, they're very related
Mm-hmm.
because the more we slow down to observe and keep adding layers of detail to our observation, that's part of what I was describing. When I think of mindfulness, is asking many questions, noticing many things. And I think that's that part is a critical part when we do an observation. So if it's okay with you, can I lead us through this little practice?
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
okay, so in terms of practicing what that might mean for mindfulness, um, so really my journey of mindfulness probably started when I was a kid. My dad is
Mm-hmm.
a psychologist in training.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was little, he would help me relax at night. And
Mm-hmm.
he would invite me to close my eyes and go on a journey. And
Okay.
I have started incorporating this into my globe training. And so maybe we can do
Mhm.
that together.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay, so if you're comfortable, and if those who are listening are comfortable, I would invite you to
Mm-hmm.
close your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just want you to take a couple deep breaths.
Okay.
Because remember, part of being mindful is just slowing down. And now I want you to think about
Mhm.
maybe a favorite spot outside you have. Maybe it's your favorite nature location you've ever been to. Maybe it's one that you visit all the time. But think about a place outdoors.
Yeah.
Now,
Start
I
thinking
want
about
you to look around in your place, right? This is all in your mind, but I want you to look around in your place and I want you to notice colors. What are the predominant colors that you see? What about shapes? What shapes do you see? What about the types of things? Are you noticing natural things? Are they human-made? Are they tall? Are they small? Now I want you to listen in your space. What can you hear?
Starting hearing water.
What were some of the colors you're seeing?
Starting to see that's with pink color. And then
Mm,
I'm starting to hear like a bird sound that's really beautiful.
wonderful. What about what you feel? Think about your sense of touch. What's beneath your feet? Is there any wind or sun or rain? What do you feel?
I feel your waterfall, so like water sound, waterfall sound. They're little creepy.
Mhm.
That make me calm and relax.
What's beneath your feet? Is it hard? Is it soft?
Yeah, I think it's so like I standing on the grass, green grass, so full of
Okay.
greenery in my mind. And they're a little house, but beautiful.
Is there anything that you smell? Take a deep breath in again.
I think I start to smell chrysanthemum smell because I love that so much.
Mm. All right, I think you get the idea. So take another deep breath in your space. Appreciate all of those senses you just felt. And now open your eyes back up and come back together with me. So that's a mini exercise in observation, right? So we were outside. I mean, we were in our mind, but we were outside
Uh,
and using our senses, right?
mm,
Doing observations can be as simple as using our senses to notice what's happening and then layering with additional detail, right? Where we characterize some of those observations, or maybe we add, and that's our qualitative data, but maybe we start to quantify things too, right? We can measure maybe what was the temperature, what was the height of a tree, those types of things. That's just adding layers to those observations that we're making.
yeah, and keep questioning the thing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that is a great example, and you just led me to do what you practiced before, and yeah, that is a great thing. And that is
It's
the
fun
great
because you
example.
can, yeah, you get to go outside without going outside.
Yeah.
But it, but do you notice something about your body or how you feel?
Yes, yes, yes. I feel quite because maybe because I take a deep breath and not trying to breathe really fast. Part of that's beginning
Yeah,
of slowing down, right? Taking a deep breath,
absolutely.
part of
Yes.
slowing down, right? And then after
Yes.
that, I'm trying to figure out the thing slowly, not too fast, and trying to imagine the thing. Then I feel just my feet on my feet there grass, and then I see a lot of wonderful thing, greenery. It's something that I really love.
Yeah. It would be great if, others can, if they do this practice, then share with somebody else what it was that they observed, because my thought here is that the connection between, so how we get to the appreciation part right? So mindfulness is also about appreciation. We have to observe those surroundings and observe with enough detail that we start to care. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we walk around and we don't notice, right? Because we're not being mindful. For example, yesterday I was driving home and my husband needed to leave before me to go get our kids from camp. And he wrote me and was like, did you see me? I drove right past you. And I said, no, I didn't notice your car. I didn't notice that you were there. I wasn't being mindful, right? And it's in that slowing down, noticing with enough detail that then, oh, we're really in our surroundings and we can then appreciate what is happening.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I walk from my dormitory to usually work from my dormitory to my campus. Sometimes I walk too fast because I don't want to late. But when I just enjoy my walk, I notice that there are some plants that need to water. So sometimes I water the plant in that place.
Yeah.
Sometimes I looking at people that need something for help, so we can give maybe food for them or little money that we have. Yeah, that your point is really true. When we trying to slow down and see the detail, and we will take care of something around us.
Yeah, we sometimes we don't even notice something's wrong, right? To your point about seeing something that, plants that needed water,
Mhm.
another person that needed help, right? And so I think this is a really important part of making observations, because in order for us to then really care about our environment and think about positive actions in our environment, we need to notice enough, right? We need to care enough. And one way to try to do that is to slow down those observations, really appreciate it, and add those layers of detail so that you're noticing and you're asking questions. I think that's a really
Mhm.
important part too of
Mhm.
observing nature, is having enough detail to even ask some really good questions.
Yeah, true. Detail is really important. Mm-hmm. And I have
Yeah.
a question. Um, for the practicing like you did in before, uh, do we need the specific time to do that, or we can do that in any time and anywhere?
I think you can do it anytime, anywhere. My dad did it with me to help me relax before I fell asleep. And sometimes people really like to do that, before sleeping. Some people really like to do meditation when they wake up to really ground themselves. But I also find that my day can get very chaotic, right? And so making sure you slow down throughout the day, I think, is also appropriate. So I think it's when you can fit it in, and then also noticing enough in yourself to say, oh, I need this moment to slow down. I'm going too fast. My observations are not detailed enough. And that's when you've really been practicing mindfulness, because you're recognizing it in yourself that you need to slow down or you need to add in these layers of detail.
So that's mean that when we get something that we don't understand enough, or we don't feel that that's not enough, we don't need to be like stressful. uh so we need to flip that thing, right? So we just need to calm and trying to slow down, because when we try to push something to make it, oh, we need to get this as fast as possible, it make us can get what we really want. But when we try to slow down, be calm, and trying to see more detail in something, it make us get what we really want, what real we want to understand the thing, right?
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
Mhm. And let's talk about your Globe program. So that is a really worldwide program. And
Yeah.
yeah, in Globe there are a lot of observation. And can you share with us one of the most enjoyable moment in globe observing experience while you doing observing the nature or environment in globe program?
Yeah, so Globe, like you said, is international. The website is globe.gov. And a lot of people participate because they find it fun. And an easy way to do it is using their mobile device. And so there's an app for that called Globe Observer. And you download the app, and it can step you through how to make some different observations of your environment. And the ones that are in the app are clouds, tree height, mosquito habitat, and land cover. And you step through the app to make those observations, and you can document with pictures, and you describe in detail. So clouds, right? So you mentioned I'm the PI of Globe Clouds. It's not just that you're noticing there are clouds in the sky, yes or no. That's the first question. But then you have to go into more detail about the cloud, right? What height in the atmosphere is the cloud? What are the characteristics? What does the structure of the cloud look like? So you can tell us about the type of cloud, right? Because different types of clouds have different shapes. And then we'll go even further and say, what about the opacity? Do you see light coming through, or is light not coming through? So you really wind up getting much more detailed in your observation when you do that. So I always find that fun to spend some time really diving deep into that one cloud. And the most fun I have with observations is when I see something I haven't seen before, right? Or I notice something I haven't noticed before. And I think that's one of the exciting parts of making observations is sometimes it's routine, but oftentimes it's not, because the more you are paying attention, right, the more you're going to notice these little differences. And I find that exciting every time there's just a little bit of difference. With clouds, that's really easy, but you do notice changes in what your land cover look like, right? Or you might go to another tree to measure tree height, and then you start to notice different aspects about that tree. And I find that really exciting to be able to see those little differences and know that you have done enough practice and observation skills that you are starting to get that little details everywhere.
Yeah, that's a great point about trying to observe, and sometimes it's become routine, and sometimes we start to notice something change or notice of the other thing of maybe the clouds or and
Yeah.
you also mentioned about in globe we are not only talking about is it cloud or not, but we also uh think about how about the opacity or how about the height, and this is a great thing that we can in our observation we can ask a lot of questions and try to figure out. And I think the interesting thing about Globe is they have the same protocol in anywhere, right? So,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Can you share with
the
us about the protocol?
yeah,
Yeah.
so every globe protocol. In Globe, you can measure all sorts of information about your environment. And we do that by creating protocols. These are the steps, the procedures to know that I'm following the same steps that you're following. So our data can be compared, right? So we know we have followed the same steps and instrument specifications, that my temperature data and your temperature data could be compared to one another. And that's a really beautiful part of this international community, because we are able to look across it and across that data. The other thing that I think is really helpful to know is that observation skills can improve, right? So having a growth mindset, think of you also growing skills, practicing making observations and getting better at just your skill of observing will also transfer to other areas of observation. In other words, if you really practice clouds, that'll help you for your mosquito habitat, right? Because the skill of observing is something that you can practice, and then that skill is transferable to anything else that where you're practicing observing. And this is where I think that observation is kind of the subset of mindfulness, because the more you practice, the better at it you get.
Yeah, that's a great point that observation is a part of mindfulness because we practice and then we can do it. Yeah, that's a
Yes.
really great point. Mm-hmm. And talking about the citizen science, how does Globe inspire citizen science through being an observer in their local area?
Yeah, so when we use this term citizen science, what we're saying is volunteers, non-professional scientists still contributing to science discovery. And so in the case of the GLOBE program, people are contributing data about their environment. And I think the reason people do it is because we do need those observations to be grounded in science. And Globe has done that part, right? We talked about the protocols. So we're all following those steps and procedures. And so there's something beautiful and powerful about contributing to a global community. I think that is something that really gets people to want to participate. I think it's also helpful to think of this as also tools that you can use in your community to identify what's going on in your environment, right? So you can use the GLOBE program and the protocols that have been developed and the app that's been developed to then think about your own community science efforts, right? So maybe you've been mindful and you've been noticing something and you're wondering if it's changing for better or for worse. And so you could start a community initiative where you're looking at that more carefully, adding those layers of detail with the GLOBE protocols to observe and use that to collect that data. I think that's all really powerful. And of course, a lot of people do love the NASA connection back to the GLOBE program. So NASA sponsors the GLOBE program, and it receives support from lots of federal agencies like NOAA, NSF, and the Department of State. But NASA is heavily involved in the program. And, you know, when you think about NASA, we think about space, right? Or what do you think about when you think of NASA?
Maybe rocket,
Yeah.
rocket, space, galaxy.
Yeah, so NASA uses that vantage point from space to, of course, observe the universe, but we also observe our home planet, Earth, because it's very important that we know what's happening here.
Yes.
So we put satellites in space and look back at Earth. And those satellites are, what is exciting is they can get global coverage, right? We can see everything that's happening, but it's not always as easy to see the fine details of what's going on, right? And so what might be happening in your community, we want to make sure that that is well represented in satellite data. So there's this nice complement, right? So satellites are providing us with one type of information or data, and people on the ground are augmenting that data with their observations. And they're very different vantage points, but think of them as complementary data sets. And so for the GLOBE program, that tie back to NASA is really unique, and also I think something that really makes people interested because you can then learn more about Earth science through NASA.
Because Earth is our home too.
It is our home, and so we need to be studying it, learning about it, and taking
Mhm.
care of it.
And we need to start it from in early age. And I watch your video. You teach your two daughters in observing clouds.
Yeah, so I have two daughters, and you probably watched the video during the pandemic in 2020. We practice doing some of these observations together,
Mhm.
and they sometimes help me with clouds. So in fact, this morning, another time we were driving to camp and we were noticing contrails. So
Mhm.
contrails are the line of clouds that can
Mhm.
follow a plane. And in this case, we had a very blue sky,
Mhm.
two contrails, but they were persistent. They were sticking around and they were spreading. And the spread was huge. I mean, it was covering a
Mhm.
pretty large percentage of the sky, but you could see clearly that it was a line that
Mhm.
had was from a contrail. And so they do help us. We spot clouds together.
Yeah, that's great. And what is the maybe the one of the interesting question that maybe your downer question to you? I know that a lot of kids, they when they notice something, they directly ask like why fish never close their eyes, or why pigs love muck so wood so much. So kids just
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good one. I would say that I think a lot of kids, and my kids have often asked me about the color of clouds. I think
Mm-hmm.
color is a thing that we're really tied to,
Mm-hmm.
and wondering about why clouds are white.
Mm-hmm.
And so the answer is clouds are made of water droplets, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
all water droplets, and water is reflecting all wavelengths of light. And so that's why they look
Mm-hmm.
white. And
Mm-hmm.
then when they look gray, it's because there isn't any light getting to reflect off of them, either because the cloud is too thick or there's too many clouds in the scene for the light to reflect off the bottom. And then one of my daughters, I was doing a video with her, and she challenged me to think about, I asked her what her favorite cloud was, and she said the pink clouds. And so I had to think for a moment about when we would have seen pink clouds.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any idea when we might have seen pink clouds?
No, I think no idea.
So I thought about
Maybe
it, and
cotton candy.
I, I think it was sunsets.
Hmm.
So sometimes at sunset and sunrise, right, you've got
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
you have these different colors, right? Because the sun is
Mhm.
setting, and so we're changing our different wavelengths of light that we're seeing. And so you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
get these beautiful purples and pinks. And yes, so I in that conversation I recognized, like, oh, she's talking about some of the reflection that happens
Mhm.
from a beautiful sunset.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, when sunset, yeah, the color of cloud and sky is different than maybe the daytime. And when the sunrise also, the color is yeah quite different. They can be purple and pink.
Yeah, because as the sun sets, the shorter wavelengths of light are what we don't see as much, and you see the longer ones. And so, anyways, you wind up having these beautiful colors in the sky. And so that was her favorite type of cloud, a sunset cloud.
Yeah, so she now has favorite clouds. Maybe she
Yes.
will more detail what type of cloud that she love when she observe and observe.
Yes. My other daughter likes cotton candy clouds, is what she calls them. And sometimes we think of cumulus clouds as cotton candy. She actually describes cirrus clouds, so high thin clouds, as cotton candy, because she thinks of it as like when you pull cotton candy off of the stick. You know how like you get like the little filament of
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
cotton candy? That's what cirrus clouds look like. And so that's
yeah.
she refers to cirrus clouds as her cotton candy clouds.
Yeah. So sometimes we can see something in our environmental, and we can take the analogy from our daily life, right? To
That's
make
right. Yeah, we
it
bring in those
clear.
past experiences to help us think about and remember things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. that's the great thing to do, because sometimes the kids can think like us maybe, so they have their own great imagination to describe the thing, and that is the great thing.
Yeah, and looping this back to mindfulness, one of the things that I notice is my children are very inquisitive, and
Mhm.
they can notice a lot of detail when you give them enough time. And I think, just speaking for myself, as an adult, again, I run through life sometimes just too fast. And I'm
Mhm.
not slowing down to either make the connections to my prior experiences in life, right? I don't think about like, oh, what does that remind me of? And I think younger kids do a really good job of seeing the world and saying, I notice, I wonder, this reminds me of. And those three questions, I notice, I wonder, this reminds me of, are also really good questions to ask when you're practicing observation, because it makes you slow down and think about that for all of the observations. And I think that's an important part of trying to bring that mindfulness back in and using environmental observations to practice that.
Yeah, that's true. And I would agree that we can use environmental observation to practice mindfulness, because maybe we are really hectic of our job, or we are busy in our time, but maybe we can open our window, maybe just a couple of minutes, and just say it's okay to slow down sometimes, and yeah, just get back to the mindfulness, and it makes us maybe make our brain can work better, rather than trying to make the thing as fast as we can, right?
Yes, I know it can seem counterintuitive that the
Mhm.
best way for you to be more productive
Oh,
is
yeah.
to actually slow down.
Yes, yes, yes. The best way to
But
be productive
that's
is
true,
to
right?
slow
The
down.
in those situations, the best way to be productive, just like you said,
Mhm.
is to take those few minutes to slow
Mhm.
down and really get your mindset right by making those observations and allowing yourself to recognize your surroundings, be curious about your surroundings, and appreciate them.
Yeah. Yeah, appreciation is really important. And
Agreed.
thank you so much for all the insightful thing, and you taught me how to practice mindfulness. And yeah, that's such a great thing. And do you have any message or advice for the young generation to emphasize the mindfulness, or to emphasize about the observing nature?
Yeah, I would say do it in your way, right? Each of us is unique and we have different interests, different things we're good at, and different things we don't like to do. So
Mhm.
make that part of your practice of being mindful or making observations, right? So you mentioned art. So if you're artistic, draw a lot of the things. Maybe you're good at putting down words. Describe it all, tell a story with it, right? And let your own unique creativity be a part of your observations.
Mm-hmm. And the important thing is try to observe ours. Try also to observe ourselves, so we can know what is our passion, what actually we like
Yes,
and don't really like, right? Mm-hmm.
absolutely. That's really important part of it.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much, Miss Jessica Taylor, for coming to our podcast and have a great conversation. I think our audience would be happy that maybe the audience watch this video, maybe they are feeling stressed, but maybe after watching this video they get the motivation to get back by slowing down. It's okay to slow down, because yeah, we are human, we experience the same thing. Sometimes the life gets hard or difficult, but by slowing
Yeah.
down, we try to see the detail, and we can try to solve the problem. We can question and take care of what we face today, right?
Agreed. And whenever that happens, you can always take a deep breath and close your eyes and remember your nature space, right?
And give the appreciation of what happened today.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to be on this show, inviting me in, and having such a great discussion.
Yeah, this is a really great discussion with you, and thank you. And I want to thank you to our audience that watch our podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully, it's make you feel joyful, feel calm, feel relaxed, feel happy with
Yes.
our positive energy. We hope we can send the positive energy to you. And before we close this podcast, as the thing that we usually do, we will say the our slogan. So, are you ready, Miss Jessica
I'm
Taylor?
ready.
So, but today is different because we will say Salam Superhero and Salam Superhéroe. So we
Yes.
have Spanish language. So, are you ready, Miss
Yes.
Jessica? So I
I'm
will
ready.
count. I will count 1, 2, 3, and Salam. We say superhero together. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Salam. Superhero.
Superhero.
And salam. Superhéroe.
Superhéroe.
Thank you so much, Miss
Woo!
Jessica Taylor. And stay tuned in this podcast, our audience. And bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.